Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. In case you weren't aware, on Friday the 13th of September, Hasbro launched their Hasbro Pulse Con 2024, essentially a very mini con showing off a bunch of new collectibles that are coming our way from a number of different brands, including Transformers, G.I. Joe, and of course our Marvel Legends and Star Wars Black Series figures. Now, I'm a collector of the Marvel Legends and Star Wars Black Series figures. I've covered a lot of these figures on my channel, so these are the ones I'm going to focus on today, but I thought I'd share my thoughts with you on some of the reveals and upcoming announcements. So let's take a look. I am of course using toyark.com. I love this website. I always try and promote it and tell people about it because it keeps up to the minute with all of the latest news on some of my favourite collectibles. So I'm going to take a look at their page today and talk through some of my thoughts of what I think are some of the key reveals. So I'm actually going to start off with some of the Star Wars offerings. And first up we have Prince Shizor from Shadows of the Empire. So this is in the 6-inch range, I believe, and I'm super excited to get my hands on this fella. I really love Prince Shizor. It is interesting that they note him as being #1 in the Shadows of the Empire line, so I hope that means that we're going to get more. Presumably, if this fella ships well and sells very well, then we might get others in this line, and that would be fantastic news. I would love to get my hands on a Dash Rendar, Chewbacca as Schnuver, Luke Skywalker in Imperial Trooper disguise. You know, all these different costumes and variations of characters that we've not seen in the Star Wars Black Series, the 6-inch scale line before. I absolutely loved Shadows of the Empire. I've covered it several times on my channel in terms of some of the figures and vehicles we've had across the years. From the very popular Power of the Force 2 line way back when in the 1990s, when of course Shadows of the Empire made its debut as a multimedia event, and it really captured my imagination as a child. And I love that I had the book, I had the soundtrack, the computer game. They did a series of comics, you know, trading cards, the works. You name it, they pretty much did it at the time, and it left a big impression on me. So having Prince Shizor here is absolutely key part of that. I think they've done a fantastic job looking at this prototype, looking at the sculpting there and some of the paint apps. He looks brilliant, far superior to the 3 3/4 inch scale figure that I have in my collection from all those years ago. Less bulky, more accurate, and a lot more detailing. He looks absolutely brilliant. It's cool that he comes with his staff as well. I just think this looks really regal. It looks like they've got some cotton elements coming from his sleeves there, which I think is fantastic. I would have liked them to have done the same for the tunic or the skirt. Obviously that does seem to be a plastic or a rubber, which is fine. I just hope that it works well with the articulation to allow him to get the most out of him when we're posing him. But otherwise, this looks great. I'd just be really glad to have him represented in my collection. So, as I say, yeah, he looks great, and I hope this means that we're going to get a few more in this line. Oh, I dearly love a Dash Rendar. That would be absolutely fantastic. Next up in the 6-inch Black Series scale, we get a Commando droid. This is from the Clone Wars, apparently. I've got to be honest, I'm not really particularly familiar with this. I haven't seen all of that series through, so I'm not familiar with this design. I don't have much feelings on this, to be honest. I guess you have to be a fan to really appreciate what you're looking at. To me, it looks like it's got some nice paint apps on the actual body. We can see a little bit of paint here, some silver, that to make it look like it's seen a bit of battle. That's had a few scuffs. That looks quite nice. This sword, though, is a little bit bland again. There's no real paint apps on this, and I don't know why they cut corners on the accessories. I mean, that would look really cool if they had a bit of a paint wash over that. It does look like he's got a little bit on the blaster, though, which is great. It is nice seeing these highlights, I should say, of these brown pieces here and some of his key joints. That just adds a splash of colour to what's otherwise a pretty dull paint job. But as I say, he does have the silver there, which looks quite nice. So he looks cool. He looks like he's got some decent posability there as well, very similar to the battle droid that we're typically seeing in this line. So I don't think there's anything too shocking here. It's more just about the sculpting, I think, of this particular droid. Okay, next we have Clone Commander Bakura. So this is taken from Revenge of the Sith, another Stormtrooper variant, so Clone Trooper variant. I don't think we've had this one before. He looks kind of interesting. I gotta say, I couldn't really pick him out from being in Revenge of the Sith. I don't really remember him being on screen, but there's that many Stormtroopers, it's hard to keep up. Yeah, we have another another Trooper variant. We've had thousands of these at this point. I suppose if you are a Trooper collector and you like to army build, then hey, this is going to be welcome news. He does seem to be a little bit different. He's got some different designs. He's got some straps coming from this cool utility belt. He's got some cloth material there around his waist, which I do think works quite well. I really like having mixed materials and having cloth rather than rubber, which restricts articulation. So for me, this looks good. It's got a splash of colour there with the purple, and obviously a very different kind of helmet there. Not a design I'm familiar with, to be honest, not one I've ever consciously taken in, and I will probably be passing on this. Nevertheless, I think a few people, especially those army builders, will be really pleased to see another Trooper variant in the collection. We also got a Star Wars Jedi Survivor figure in the 6-inch scale. Now, I haven't actually played Jedi Survivor yet, but obviously this is going to be, I guess, a key character that appears there, because we have Dagan Gera. Apologies if I'm slaughtering the pronunciation of that name. It's the first time I'm seeing it. Obviously comes with two very cool looking lightsabers. It's got quite an interesting look. It looks to be a Jedi. Quite interesting. Looking at this image here, is he missing an arm? Or he, she, I can't quite tell. Is that missing an arm there? Is that deliberate, or is that... Yeah, okay, interesting. Interesting. So this character doesn't have one arm. Cool. And can fit those lightsabers together to make a sort of a Darth Maul style lightsaber, a uni lightsaber. Pretty cool. Okay, interesting figure. As I said, not a character I'm familiar with. Looks to be quite a nice design. Some nice elements on this. You know, what I can see from this photo is there's some nice gold paint here around some of the detailings on the tunic. Obviously, they've opted for a plastic. It looks like a hard plastic. That might present some challenges to posability, but it looks to be pretty nice for the most part. Again, what we are seeing though is a real lack of shading, even in the hair there. There is no sort of washes running through this figure, which, you know, it's so common these days, especially with Hasbro and McFarlane. But it's such a waste. If they just added a little bit of a wash, it would really enhance what are really nice sculpts for the most part. Okay, then it looks like we're actually getting a 6-inch variant of Luke Skywalker for the Black Series. So we've had this figure before, well, I should say this version of the character before in the Black Series, in the 6-inch scale. Obviously, it looks like we have a new head sculpt though, certainly the very different colouring to the top of the head there, the hair, a lot darker this time around. And interestingly, the first release that they released a few years ago to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Star Wars had a cloth tunic. They've opted for the hard plastic this time around. Okay, interesting. For me, to be honest, an easy pass because I already have the 40th anniversary version. I'm pretty happy with that. Mine came with the land speeder, and I thought it was a pretty decent figure. So the only issue I had with that figure was the belt. I had a tendency to want to pop off all the time. But apart from that, it was a pretty decent figure, and I don't see any need to really upgrade him. But if you never got him, or you weren't happy with the cloth costume, as some people aren't, then this looks like a suitable variant. As for the head sculpt, I don't think it's any stronger. I don't think it's a fantastic likeness. It's not bad at all, but I don't think it's any better than the previous one. But I suppose I'd have to see them both next to each other, hand in hand, to make that assessment, really. But that's not all, because we are also getting a Princess Leia from A New Hope. Again, we've had this figure before, again in a cloth costume. This time they've opted for a plastic costume instead. So let's take a look at bits and pieces. Obviously the hood is a separate piece this time around that you can attach or remove. I guess it will keep its shape, which is a bonus. And it looks great in this pose here. I just wonder if you remove the hands, what that would actually look like. That might look a little bit weird. I don't know, I could be wrong. Let's take a look at some of the other snaps. Here we go. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that, how that looks. Yeah, okay. Again, for a character that's all in white plastic, really needed some washes here and there. Certainly on the skirt where there's some, you know, sculpted waves and lines in there, just to give it a bit more texture, because it does look a bit washed out, doesn't it? Not hugely impressed with this. However, I do think this is a really good head sculpt. I'm not sure if they've reused the one they had previously. This might be sharper. This might be better. I'm sorry I don't have the other one to hand to really be able to closely scrutinize them. But this does look really good, actually. I think this looks nice. And this, I think this is new. I think this is new, and I think it might be better. Is my first impression there. Otherwise, the figure itself, I'm not entirely sure. I think I prefer my original. Okay, then we're moving on to the vintage series. Now, this is not a series I collect. We've had that many in the 3 3/4 scale range across the years. Plus, for me, if I'm collecting the 6-inch scale, I don't want to be collecting them in the 3 3/4 as well. It feels like just duplication, really. I know a lot of people really, really love the vintage because it is much more in the keeping of their traditional collections, what they've always collected, and of course there's more vehicles and dioramas and scenes to get into, but we have 4 here being added to this line. We have a clone trooper lieutenant, so obviously taken from Ashoka, apparently, because it says so up there. This could be from the Clone Wars, I guess, as well. Definitely feel like I've seen this one before, or some variant on it, but yeah, pretty cool design, looks to be pretty nice, but I'm sure we've had many others like this beforehand, so probably nothing too revolutionary about this particular release. Then we have Anakin Skywalker from Ahsoka, which is kind of interesting. Again, I'm sure we've had this figure before. It might feature a new head sculpt. I'm not an expert on this, so I wouldn't be able to say, but obviously this is featuring the de-aged Anakin that we see in that series, so a slightly different look, a slightly uncanny look for Hayden Christensen there, and obviously that's what they're going for in that head sculpt, I think. But again, nice to see some cloth pieces on this figure, even in this scale, which is kind of cool. And yeah, I think this is actually a pretty decent Anakin, all in all. Okay, then we have one from Andor. Again, I've not seen Andor, certainly not all the way through, so Deidre Miro means nothing to me, in all truth. But if you're a fan of the show, then you're going to be happy to pick up another Imperial officer, I'm sure. Okay, and then one I am familiar with, Star Wars. A New Hope, Luke Skywalker. Pretty cool. Again, I'm sure we've had thousands of variants on this particular costume and this look in this scale across the years. I still have my Kenner from the 1990s Power of the Force 2 line, Luke, which is very beefy, so I could probably do with an update. However, as I said, I don't collect this line, but yeah, this, I don't know if this is particularly different from anything we've had before, but I can imagine if you don't have it, then this is pretty good. It looks like a fairly decent likeness actually for the scale, although the lightsaber looks a little bit chunky. That might be a little bit too big, I'm not sure, but otherwise this looks to be pretty decent, although not much in the way of paint apps I noticed, at least not in this photo. It would have been nice if there'd been more of a wash running through his tunic there, especially because obviously he's in the desert and that's actually quite dirty, so I would have thought they would have given it out a little bit of a wash over, but nevertheless, what are you going to do? Okay. But that's not all though, because this is the stuff I'm actually quite excited by, and this is the stuff that actually does tempt me to get into the vintage collection, because they're actually doing a lot more of these dioramas now, and I do love these world building elements, and I think this is what makes it really, really fun. They did start to explore doing something like this with the 6-inch black series scale. Oh dear, I'm tripping over my words now, because they did that cantina scene for an anniversary of the Power of the Force 2 line, which I've actually covered on the channel, and it was really cool, but it's obviously just part one of a larger set that was never completed, and it didn't seem to sell particularly well. So obviously it does do a lot better, and it's a lot easier and cheaper to produce in the 3 3/4 scale, and it is really cool because we're getting some really interesting bits and pieces. We've had announced the cantina. I think they've done Jabba's palace, and now obviously they're moving on to the streets of Mos Eisley, which is kind of cool. So this is obviously just the beginning piece. You can see these connecting parts here. They're hoping to expand on this, but this is a nice start, and yeah, I think this looks really quite good. I actually think, is this what is outside the cantina? Is this the cantina outside? Yeah, I think it might be actually, which is very cool. That means you're getting a full construct there. You could put your Mos Eisley cantina the other side of it, and it would look really, really cool. So if I'm right on that, that is a really nice move, very smart. Obviously it looks like we're getting a Jawa with it, which is great. Again, cloth outfit there, which is very cool. That's very retro actually. That goes right back all the way to the initial 1970s or 1980s Kenner line, which is great, and obviously the homage in that there with the old logo and the retro style packaging. So that's nice. That's pretty cool. I like that. There's a close look at him there. Yeah, looking pretty good. And there's the actual set, as you can see, just clicks together there. It's all just frontage. Just it's not 2D, but it has that sort of appearance to it, which is interesting. But yeah, you can definitely see the potential here to expand this further on, which would be pretty cool, actually. Yeah, I can definitely see the mileage in that, and it's the kind of thing that makes me want to get into this line. Yeah, that's pretty fun. Okay, now we're on to the really exciting stuff. Well, for me, this is the really exciting stuff. I love the Marvel line, and this was a bombshell moment for me. I was really excited to see this. If you're a long-term fan of the show, then you will know that I do collect this line quite heavily. I love the Spider-Man animated series, and I really like their animated series figures. We've had a couple of sets already this year, which I've covered on the channel before, and this one apparently is in stock now, so I've put my order in, so hopefully I'll get this fairly soon. But really delighted at this choice. We're getting Spider-Man at last in his classic red and blues, and we're getting a Vulture from the animated series specifically as well, which is brilliant because I always loved this character and this look for this character. And it's great that we're getting a Spider. We have had one before with cell shading. I was finally able to pick one up after a long time hunting for it, but it is great that we're actually getting another one now, because I think a lot of fans missed out on that one. It's quite tricky to get hold of at the time. But anyway, let's take a look at this Vulture. I think this is great. We actually get two heads, which is fantastic, meaning we get to create two different looks for Adrian Toomes. We get the old man Toomes, and we get the young, refreshed, reinvigorated version as well. I really love this costume design. It was the first Vulture design that I was ever introduced to, and I think there's something about that where it stays in your mind. It makes such a strong impression when you're young. So I love this design. I love the colours. I think it works really, really well. Not seeing an awful lot in the way of cell shading here. In fact, I don't see any. It seems like they've pretty much abandoned that now in the line, so it is very inconsistent. I always complain about this, but hey, I'm really glad to just finally have them, and this looks really good. I like how there's multiple tones of blue sort of graduating out here, and they sort of gradient. It just looks really good, actually, and it looks to be pretty accurate. The only thing is, if I click in on that, there is that gun piece that actually looks to be welded in. That's disappointing. That should be a separate piece. That should be a weapon he's able to pop in there or withdraw. And I'm pretty sure on my original figure from Toy Biz's 90s line, that actually was a separate piece. I hadn't noticed that. That's disappointing. Let's take a closer look. Yeah, that is definitely sculpted in there. That's a bit clumsy. That's a shame. That's a real shame. Nevertheless, I do love that we get the two heads, so this is very, very cool, creating a couple of different display options for us there. And yeah, this works really well. I think we've seen these wings before, probably on Falcon figures in the past. What they tend to do is have two sheets of plastic, one going behind and one coming under there, so that you can enjoy the best out of the articulation. And it tends to work pretty well in terms of the visuals well. Usually it's not too apparent that there's a seam there. So yeah, this looks great. He looks really, really good. Then of course we get the Spider-Man as well. So no cell shading this time around. Sadly, he doesn't have the upper torso articulation, the ball joint in the chest area, which is what I'd really hope for. We've seen that in a lot of recent Spidey figures, and it works an absolute treat. So a shame to see that we've gone back to the swivel and ab crunch at the waist there and the torso for articulation. The head sculpt looks great though. I think this might be a new head sculpt. That does look really cool. And is the body slightly bulkier? Perhaps. I think it is. In fact, it might be using what I tend to think of as the Human Torch with the butterfly wing base mold body there. That would be cool. Yeah, I do really love that body type. I love the articulation, and I think it works for the animated series because that Spider-Man is a little bit bulkier than we see in, say, some of the comic books when he's a little bit skinnier. So I actually think that looks really cool. This very thin V here actually looks to be pretty accurate, I want to say. Been a while since I've seen the animated series, but obviously that's a conscious choice. That's not typical of what we see on Spider-Man figures. This tends to be a bit wider, so they've obviously made a conscious choice there to streamline that and make that a lot narrower, which is quite interesting, kind of cool. Obviously differentiates him from other versions of Spidey we've had across the years, and of course we've had thousands. So all in all, looks pretty cool, although I've got some reservations about that chest joint not being there. We do, though, get a Peter Parker head. Again, we've had one not too long ago, actually, so less exciting. What is pretty cool, though, is that we get a Flash Thompson head. That's kind of interesting. I believe there is an episode where Flash dresses up as Spidey, right? I think that happens in the animated series. I could be wrong. I think it's early on. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, this is kind of cool. Obviously, giving us something brand new here. I've not had this before. That would be quite interesting. And of course, we get the standard sort of whipping hands, closed fist hands, and we get the mask pulled off reveal, which is again, I think we've had something similar to this in the past. So, but nevertheless, a cool piece. Not one that I actually have, so this makes it a worthwhile purchase for me for sure. He looks to be pretty poseable. They do some really good poses with these. I'm not sure how easy it is to replicate these in real life, though. But yeah, needless to say, I've got my my pre-order in there, and I'm hoping these will ship very, very quickly because they do claim to be in stock, which is exciting. Okay, next up was a bit of a shocker, quite delightful, but I have mixed feelings on this. We're actually getting an anniversary of Secret Wars, 40 years, which is incredible to think. Although I just missed Secret Wars as a kid, I was able to play with my brother's toys, so I actually have a great love of this line. We even had the Secret Wars Tower base as well to play with as a kid, which is exciting, and they went pretty deep on that line. So obviously we've only got a handful of figures here, just 6, including a couple of characters I don't believe were ever released in the original line, and 4 up-to-date reproductions. So let's dive into these, because there's quite a few. First up, we have the Beyonder, and this is one of the ones I don't think ever got produced first time around, amazingly enough, given that he is the main antagonist out of the series. And I think this is the first time we're seeing him in the line, Marvel Legends line, in the 6-inch scale line. So this is his debut. This is pretty exciting. Although the character doesn't have the most exciting costume in the world, it is, sorry, I'll just go back. It is pretty cool to finally have this very significant character, obviously very important character in the 80s, in both Secret Wars and Secret Wars 2. And he's shown up several times since as well. So very cool. The other thing that's interesting about this character is, well, all of these characters, is that they're actually getting the reproduction shields with a hologram in to scale, which is kind of cool. It always seemed like a slightly mystifying element when I was a kid. I never understood quite why they have these these shields that show both their costume identity and their alter ego. Why anyone would need that or use that in battle is beyond me, but nevertheless, it's a cool feature, and it's great that they have replicated that here. Okay, the other really cool key one for me in this announcement is Titania. Again, her first debut appearance in the Marvel Legends line, and another one that I don't believe was covered in the original Secret Wars line all those years ago. Now, I could be wrong on that, but from my memory, she didn't make an appearance, and this is great. Really, really cool. It looks like a lot of new pieces here. These kneecap bits here look to be a little bit different in terms of the boots. These spikes on the boots are definitely new. There's an obviously brand new head sculpt. I think there's a lot here on this figure that's absolutely brand new, which is fantastic. She should be a little bit tall, so I suspect they're probably using the recent She-Hulk figure as a base. I reckon she'll be very similar in scale and reuse some of the bits and pieces for the legs and arms, I suspect. But absolutely fantastic. This is a must buy. Okay, then we're getting another Wolverine, and fair enough, it is also an anniversary year for Wolverine. We're getting an awful lot of variants across this year of this character. I've already bought quite a few of them. And here he is in his tan costume again. I had mixed feelings on this. Is he different enough from what we've had previously? And there are quite a few differences. It's a slightly different brown for a start on the boots, which and the arms, obviously. Wherever there's brown on his costume, it's a slightly lighter shade of brown. You can't see it here because of the shield, but actually, as we just saw with the Spider-Man, the sort of the stripe on the front of his torso is actually a lot thinner as well, so quite a lot more accurate to what we see in the Secret Wars comic. And of course, we do get a brand new head sculpt. In fact, we get 2 head sculpts. We get a Logan sculpt, and we're getting this Wolverine sculpt. In the Wolverine mask, obviously, he's got this smirk, which is different for the character. And in terms of the Logan, again, I think that's a brand new head sculpt. So we're getting a lot of new elements to this Wolverine. Obviously, a lot that has been recycled in terms of the base body, etc. But he's subtly different in a few key places that kind of make me want to pick him up. It looks like he's already selling out everywhere pretty quick, so if you want him, make sure you get a pre-order in ASAP, because yeah, he's flying away. Then we get another Captain America. Again, another Captain America. We've had so many. But there are a few key differences. Brand new variation on his shield. This is a broken, snapped off shield, so it actually comes in 3 pieces. I don't think you can connect it together at all. I think this is just literally, you get the broken shield here, which you can use as usual, and then you get these 2 additional snapped off pieces. This is kind of cool. We've not had something like this before, I don't think, so I do like this. It looks really cool. It looks like they've actually etched in these cracks and then painted over them, which is great. I could be wrong, they might have just painted it, but this one definitely looks like it's been scoured in there, which is going to give it that depth and texture that it needs, which is great. We're actually getting 2 head sculpts for Cap as well. We're getting this more snarling aggressive head, which we've not had before, and we get a more neutral standard head. Okay, then we're getting another Iron Man. So again, this looks to be pretty much what we've had before in some of the anniversary. In fact, the Marvel Legends 20th anniversary Iron Man figure, I think this is pretty much identical for the most part. The head sculpt might be a little bit different. This faceplate looks to be a little bit different. The head looks a bit more round. I could be wrong on that though, but just my initial impression there. Otherwise, pretty much the same figure. However, there is some very slight differences that I immediately noticed. In terms of the accessories, we're actually going to get the rollerblades, which is cool. I don't think we've ever had that before, and it's such a little thing. It's not something I buy this figure for, but I am tempted to buy the case load because I really love the packaging design and all of that retro stuff. But I think that would be kind of cool to have Iron Man in his skates. In the 80s, he had some skates, which seems slightly ludicrous now, but hey, it was the 80s. Okay, and then we have another symbiote Spider-Man, which is interesting. Again, we've had this figure multiple times now, so there's nothing particularly new here. The only thing that's different this time around is that we do get an alternate head, which actually has the squinting eyes, the more aggressive, angry look on the head sculpt, which, I probably wouldn't buy the figure just for that, but if I'm going to get it in a caseload anyway, that's kind of cool to have. So I'm kind of tempted, is what I'm saying with that one. But otherwise, if you already have this, there's probably not much need for you to pick it up unless you really want an alternate expression on the head there. But there they are. There's the packaging, which is great. Obviously, very retro, replicating what we got all the way back in the 80s, which is fantastic. Looks pretty cool. Quite interesting to see how successful this is, because they might go a bit deeper on this line, do a second wave, or maybe they'll just do odd ones here and there. But you can see some of the bits and pieces. I should have said about the Iron Man, actually, what's quite interesting is that he also comes with that little gun thing that as he did back in the 80s. I'm not entirely sure what that was for, but cool to see that he's actually got that. And there you can see the alternate head sculpt, the Logan head sculpt for Wolverine there, which is pretty good. Okay, so quite an interesting lineup. Like I said, one I have mixed feelings on because I have a lot of these figures already, so they are just tweaks for the most part. These 2 definitely fantastic to add to the collection, so these are must-haves. These, I'm not sure. Watch the channel, watch the space. We'll see whether I review them, whether I get them or not. Okay, so there you have it. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you planning to pick any of these up? Are there any that are really exciting to you? Any that are disappointing? Was there anything you were hoping would be announced that wasn't? I'm really curious to get your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider giving the video a like. That kind of thing really does help the channel out, and it allows me to keep making more content. And if you're interested in seeing more content, remember to hit subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos coming soon.